In the heart of the English countryside, nestled among rolling hills and vibrant green fields, lay the charming village of Willowbrook. With its cobblestone streets, quaint cottages adorned with blooming window boxes, and the distant sound of sheep bleating in the meadows, it was a place where time seemed to stand still. The villagers knew each other by name, sharing laughter and stories over cups of tea at the local cafe, the Willow Tree. Among them was Emily Carter, a dedicated nurse at the village hospital. With her warm smile and compassionate nature, she was beloved by all. Emily had a special bond with her golden retriever, Max, who was more than just a pet. He was her confidant and companion. Every morning, as the sun peeked over the horizon, Emily would slip on her sneakers and take Max for a long walk through the lush countryside. They would explore winding trails, play fetch in open fields, and greet fellow villagers along the way. Max was a spirited dog with a heart as big as his paws. His golden fur glistened in the sunlight, and his expressive brown eyes sparkled with mischief and affection. He had an uncanny ability to sense emotions, whether it was joy or sorrow, and would always be there to offer comfort with a gentle nuzzle or a wagging tail. Emily often joked that Max had a sixth sense. He could tell when someone needed cheering up. One crisp autumn morning, as leaves danced to the ground in shades of amber and crimson, Emily prepared for her shift at the hospital. She looked out the window at Max, who was happily chasing after a fallen leaf in the garden. "Come on, buddy, time to get ready," she called out. Max bounded into the house, his tail wagging furiously. Emily knelt down to give him a scratch behind his ears. "You know I'll be back soon, right? You'll keep an eye on things while I'm gone." She spoke softly, knowing that her words were more for her own reassurance than for Max's understanding. After giving Max his breakfast and filling his water bowl, Emily grabbed her bag and headed out the door. As she walked down the lane towards the hospital, she waved to Mr. Thompson, who was sweeping leaves outside his shop. "Morning, Emily, and good morning to you too, Max," he called out with a grin. Max barked happily in response, always eager for attention. The village was alive with activity. Children laughed as they played in front of their homes while mothers chatted over garden fences. It was this sense of community that made Willowbrook so special. At the hospital, Emily settled into her routine, checking on patients, administering medications, and providing comfort to those in need. She often shared stories about Max with her patients. They loved hearing about his antics and how he brought joy to her life. Little did she know that Max would soon become an integral part of a story that would touch everyone's hearts. As the day wore on, Emily noticed an unusual tension in the air. Clara Evans, a single mother who lived down the road from Emily, had come into the hospital earlier that week with her son Jamie for a routine checkup. Jamie was a bright-eyed boy with an infectious laugh who adored Max as much as anyone else in town. But today Clara's face was pale with worry. "Emily," Clara said breathlessly as she approached her in the hallway. "I think something's wrong with Jamie." Emily's heart sank at Clara's distressed expression. "What do you mean? Is he feeling unwell?" Clara nodded frantically. "He's been complaining about chest pains all morning. I don't know what to do." Without hesitation, Emily took Clara by the arm and led her toward the examination room where Jamie was waiting. "Let's take a look at him right away." As they hurried through the hospital corridors, little did they know that Max was watching. From home, his instincts already sensing that something wasn't right. Back at their cottage in Willowbrook, Max lay on his favorite rug by the fireplace but couldn't shake off an uneasy feeling. He stood up suddenly and padded toward the door as if he knew that his friend needed him now more than ever. The bond between humans and their furry companions is often unexplainable. Sometimes it transcends words or logic. And today would prove to be one of those moments, a moment where love and loyalty would intertwine in ways no one could foresee. This chapter sets up the characters and establishes their relationships while foreshadowing future events that will lead to Max's heroic actions. The sun rose higher in the sky, casting a warm golden glow over Willowbrook. The village was alive with the sounds of birds chirping and the distant laughter of children playing outside. It was a picturesque autumn day, perfect for a stroll through the countryside or a visit to the local market. Yet, for Emily Carter, today felt different. The unease she sensed in Clara's voice lingered in her mind as she finished her morning rounds at the hospital. After attending to her patients, Emily took a moment to sip her tea in the staff room. She gazed out the window, watching the leaves swirl in the gentle breeze. "I hope Jamie is all right," she murmured to herself, thinking of Clara's worried face. Meanwhile, back at their cozy cottage, Max lay sprawled on his favorite spot by the window, his golden fur catching the sunlight. He watched as squirrels dashed across the lawn and birds flitted from branch to branch. But something felt off. He could sense that his beloved friend Jamie needed him. As Emily finished her shift and headed home, she decided to stop by Clara's house to check on them. She knew how much Jamie adored Max, and she hoped that seeing his furry friend would lift his spirits. When she arrived at Clara's quaint cottage, she knocked gently on the door. It swung open to reveal Clara, her eyes red-rimmed but filled with gratitude upon seeing Emily. "Thank you for coming," Clara said softly. "Jamie's inside. He's been resting." Emily stepped inside, greeted by the familiar sense of home. Baking bread and freshly brewed tea mingled in the air. She followed Clara down the narrow hallway to Jamie's room, where she found him lying on his bed, looking pale but still managing a weak smile when he saw Emily. "Hey there, champ," Emily said cheerfully as she sat on the edge of his bed. "How are you feeling?" "Not great," Jamie replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "My chest hurts." Emily placed her hand gently on his forehead to check for fever. "Let's see what we can do about that." She pulled out her stethoscope and listened to his heart and lungs, noting that they sounded slightly irregular. "Clara," Emily said after a moment, turning to Jamie's mother with concern etched on her face. "I think we should get him checked out at the hospital again. It could be something serious." Clara nodded anxiously, her hands trembling slightly as she reached for Jamie's hand. "I'll call for an ambulance." As Clara stepped out of the room to make the call, Emily stayed with Jamie, trying to keep him calm. She told him stories about Max's latest adventures, how he had chased after a particularly cheeky squirrel that had dared to invade their garden. "Max would love to see you," Emily said with a smile. "He misses you so much." Just then, Max appeared at the door, having sensed that something was amiss. His ears perked up as he caught sight of Jamie lying in bed. With a joyful bark, he bounded into the room and jumped onto the bed beside Jamie. "Max!" Jamie exclaimed with delight, his face lighting up despite his discomfort. Max nuzzled against Jamie's side, offering warmth and companionship. It was as if he understood that his friend needed him now more than ever. Clara returned from making the call just as Max settled down next to Jamie, providing comfort with his presence. "The ambulance is on its way," she said softly, brushing away tears that threatened to spill over. Emily took a deep breath and squeezed Clara's hand reassuringly. "You're doing everything right," she said firmly. Minutes felt like hours as they waited for help to arrive. Outside, the village continued its daily rhythm. Children played in the streets while neighbors tended to their gardens. But inside Clara's home, time seemed suspended in worry. Finally, they heard the distant sound of sirens approaching, a sound that usually brought relief but now filled them with anxiety instead. As they prepared for the paramedics' arrival, Max instinctively sensed that something important was about to happen. When the ambulance pulled up outside their cottage, Clara's heart raced with both hope and fear. The paramedics rushed inside with their equipment and immediately assessed Jamie's condition. "Hello there, I'm Tom," one of them said warmly as he knelt beside Jamie's bed. "Can you tell me where it hurts?" As Tom examined Jamie, Emily stood nearby with Clara and Max by her side, offering silent support through their presence. Max watched intently as Tom worked. He could feel an urgency in the air, a need for protection and reassurance. After a thorough examination and some quick tests, Tom turned to Clara and Emily with a serious expression but also a glimmer of hope in his eyes. "We need to take him in for further tests just to be safe." Clara nodded vigorously, tears streaming down her cheeks as relief washed over her mixed with worry for her son. "Max will come with us," Emily declared suddenly, surprising everyone in the room. "He can help keep Jamie calm during this whole process." Clara looked uncertain but then saw how Max had already instinctively positioned himself next to Jamie as if he were guarding him from harm. With that decision made, they carefully lifted Jamie onto a stretcher while Max trotted alongside them. He seemed determined not just to accompany them but also to protect his friend at all costs. As they made their way outside toward the ambulance under a canopy of autumn leaves swirling around them like confetti celebrating life itself, no one could have predicted how this day would unfold, or how Max would soon become an unlikely hero in a story that would forever change their lives. The crisp autumn air was filled with urgency as the paramedics carefully loaded Jamie onto the stretcher. Max trotted alongside, his golden fur gleaming in the sunlight, a steadfast presence amid the chaos. Emily walked beside Clara, offering her support as they made their way to the ambulance parked outside. "Everything will be all right," Emily reassured Clara, though she felt a knot tightening in her stomach. She knew that Jamie needed immediate medical attention, and the uncertainty of his condition weighed heavily on her heart. Once inside the ambulance, Jamie lay on the stretcher with an oxygen mask over his face. The interior was bright and sterile, filled with medical equipment that beeped and hummed softly. Max settled at Jamie's side, resting his head on the boy's chest, his warm presence a soothing balm for Jamie's frayed nerves. "Just breathe slowly for me, Jamie," Emily instructed gently as she checked the monitors displaying Jamie's vital signs. "You're doing great." Jamie nodded but looked up at Max with wide eyes. "Will I be okay?" he asked, his voice trembling slightly. Max lifted his head and met Jamie's gaze, his brown eyes filled with unwavering loyalty and love. It was as if he were saying, "I'm right here with you, you are not alone." As they sped toward the hospital, Emily kept talking to Jamie about everything they loved. Max's antics in the garden, their favorite games of fetch, and how he had once chased a butterfly all the way into Mrs. Henderson's flower bed. Each story brought a small smile to Jamie's face, even as fear lingered in his eyes. The ambulance siren wailed through the village streets, drawing attention from passers-by who paused to watch it rush by. In Willowbrook, where everyone knew each other's names and stories, concern rippled through the community like a wave. At the hospital, Emily quickly took charge as they arrived. She helped guide the paramedics as they wheeled Jamie inside, her heart racing with every step. The familiar scent of antiseptic filled her nostrils as they entered the emergency department. "Get him into room 3. She called out to the staff bustling around them. "We need to run some tests." The team sprang into action while Emily stayed close to Clara and Max. The golden retriever remained by Jamie's side as they transferred him onto an examination bed. He licked Jamie's hand reassuringly before settling down at his feet. "Max will stay with you," Emily promised Jamie as she adjusted the IV line attached to his arm. "He'll keep you company while we figure out what's going on." The doctors arrived quickly. Drive. Patel and Nurse Sarah, a dynamic duo known for their expertise and compassion. "Doctor." Patel smiled warmly at Jamie despite the seriousness of the situation. "Hey there, buddy, we're going to take good care of you," he said as he began examining him. Emily watched intently as Dr. Patel checked Jamie's heart rate and listened to his breathing through a stethoscope. The atmosphere in the room was tense but focused. Everyone knew how critical it was to get answers quickly. Meanwhile, Clara stood nearby, clutching Max's leash tightly in her hand as if it were a lifeline. She felt helpless but grateful for Max's presence. Her son needed all the love and support he could get right now. "Can I see what they're doing?" Jamie asked softly, trying to peer over at Drive. Patel. "Of course," Emily replied encouragingly. "They're just making sure everything is all right inside your body." As Dr. Patel continued his examination and ordered tests, a blood draw and an ECG, Max remained vigilant at Jamie's feet, occasionally looking up at him with those soulful eyes that seemed to say everything would be okay. After what felt like an eternity but was only about 20 minutes later, Drive. Patel turned back to Clara and Emily with a serious expression. "Jamie has been experiencing some irregularities in his heart rhythm," he explained carefully. "We'll need to keep him here for further observation and run some additional tests." Clara gasped softly, her hand flying to her mouth as tears brimmed in her eyes again. "Is it serious?" she asked anxiously. "It can be concerning, Drive." Patel replied gently but firmly, "But we're going to do everything we can to help him." He glanced down at Max lying protectively next to Jamie before continuing. "Having a pet around can really help reduce anxiety for kids during tough times like this." Emily nodded in agreement. She knew firsthand how much comfort Max could provide not just for Jamie but for anyone feeling scared or alone. As they prepared Jamie for more tests and monitoring equipment beeped steadily around them, Clara reached down to stroke Max's fur gently. "Thank you for being here," she whispered to him. Max responded by nuzzling against her hand before turning back to look at Jamie once more, his loyal spirit unwavering amidst uncertainty. In that moment of worry and fear, surrounded by medical professionals working diligently to help him, Jamie felt an overwhelming sense of calm wash over him thanks to one constant presence: Max, the golden retriever who had become not just a pet but a true friend and protector. Little did they know that this day would mark a turning point not only for Jamie but also for everyone in Willowbrook, a day when love would shine through even in the darkest moments. This chapter heightens tension while showcasing teamwork among medical staff and highlighting Max's role in providing comfort during an emergency situation. As the hours passed in the hospital, the sterile environment buzzed with activity. Nurses moved swiftly between rooms, doctors consulted on cases, and the sounds of medical equipment filled the air. But in room 3, where Jamie lay, there was a different kind of energy, a palpable bond between a boy and his dog that seemed to transcend the clinical atmosphere surrounding them. Max remained steadfast by Jamie's side, his golden fur a comforting presence against the stark white sheets of the hospital bed. The boy's small hand rested on Max's back, fingers gently stroking through his soft coat. It was a simple act, but it provided Jamie with a sense of security that nothing else could. "Max, you're my hero," Jamie whispered, his voice still weak but filled with affection. The golden retriever lifted his head at the sound of Jamie's voice, his brown eyes sparkling with understanding. It was as if he knew that he had a special role to play in this moment. Emily stood nearby, monitoring Jamie's vital signs on the machine beside him. She felt a mix of anxiety and determination. She wanted to ensure that everything would be all right for her young friend. "You're doing so well, Jamie," she encouraged him. "The doctors are going to take good care of you." Just then, Drive Patel entered the room again, clipboard in hand. "All right, Jamie," he said with a reassuring smile. "We're going to run some tests now to get a better understanding of what's going on with your heart." Jamie nodded but looked up at Max with concern. "Will you stay with me?" he asked softly. "Of course," Emily replied quickly. "Max will never leave your side." With that promise made, the medical team began their work. They prepared Jamie for an echocardiogram, a test that would use sound waves to create images of his heart. As they set up the equipment, Jamie's anxiety began to rise again. "Can I hold Max?" he asked nervously. "Absolutely," Emily said without hesitation. "Let's get him up here." As they carefully lifted Max onto the bed beside Jamie, the boy's face lit up with joy. He wrapped his arms around Max's neck, pulling him close as if drawing strength from their bond. "Okay, buddy, drive," Patel said gently as he started the test. "This will just take a few minutes. You'll feel some cool gel on your chest, but it won't hurt at all." Jamie nodded but kept his eyes on Max, who lay beside him like a fluffy guardian angel. The echocardiogram began, and as the technician moved the wand over Jamie's chest, he felt a wave of calm wash over him thanks to Max's comforting presence. "See, you're doing great," Emily encouraged as she watched Jamie relax slightly under Max's watchful gaze. After several minutes filled with beeping machines and soft murmurs from the medical staff, Drive Patel reviewed the images displayed on the monitor. He turned back to Jamie with a thoughtful expression. "All right, we have some information now," he said calmly. "It looks like you have a condition called supraventricular tachycardia, SVT for short, which means your heart is beating faster than normal sometimes." Jamie blinked in confusion but held tightly onto Max as if seeking reassurance from his furry friend. "It sounds scary," Clara said softly from her place by the door, her heart aching for her son. "It can be concerning, Drive," Patel acknowledged gently, "but it's manageable with treatment and monitoring. We'll work together to make sure you're feeling better soon." Max seemed to sense Jamie's unease. He nudged his nose against Jamie's hand again and let out a soft whine as if to say everything would be all right. As Dr. Patel continued explaining the next steps, medications and lifestyle changes, Emily noticed something remarkable happening in the room. Despite the seriousness of their situation, there was an undeniable warmth that enveloped them all, a sense of unity forged through love and support. After Dr. Patel finished explaining everything and left to consult with other specialists about Jamie's care plan, Clara stepped closer to her son and gently brushed her fingers through his hair. "I'm so proud of you," she whispered tearfully. "You're so brave." Jamie smiled weakly but looked worried again as he glanced at Max. "What if I have to stay here for a long time?" Emily knelt down beside him and took his hand in hers. "You won't be alone," she promised firmly. "Max will be right here with you every step of the way." Just then, something unexpected happened. Max suddenly stood up on the bed and turned toward the door as if sensing something urgent outside. "What is it, boy?" Clara asked curiously. Max let out a low bark and trotted toward the door, stopping just short of crossing over into the hallway. His ears perked up as he listened intently. It was clear that something had caught his attention. "Max," Emily called softly but firmly as she followed him to see what was going on. Suddenly, they heard commotion outside in the corridor, a loud crash followed by hurried footsteps echoing through the hallways. "What is happening?" Clara asked anxiously as she joined them at the door. Before anyone could react further, Max bolted out into the hallway without hesitation, his instincts kicking in as he sensed someone in distress. "Max, come back," Emily called after him instinctively but felt an urge to let him go. She knew he was responding to something important. As Clara and Emily rushed after him down the corridor, they found themselves caught in an unexpected scene. A young woman had collapsed near one of the waiting areas. A look of panic etched across her face as she clutched her chest. Max had already reached her side before they could catch up. He stood beside her protectively and began nudging her gently with his nose while barking insistently for help. The commotion drew attention from nearby staff members who rushed over to assist, the paramedics quickly assessing her condition while others called for additional medical support. "Someone get Drive Patel," one nurse shouted urgently while another checked vitals on the young woman lying on the floor. Emily watched in awe as Max continued to stay by her side, his presence providing comfort not just for Jamie but now for this stranger in need too. In that moment, it became clear. Max was not just any dog. He was an unlikely hero whose instincts were leading him to help those around him when they needed it most. As Clara stood frozen in amazement alongside Emily watching their beloved golden retriever take charge amidst chaos unfolding before them, she couldn't help but feel an overwhelming sense of pride for both her son and his furry companion who had become so much more than just a pet. They were true guardians of love and hope in their little village of Willowbrook. This chapter showcases Max's instinctive response to help others while emphasizing themes of loyalty and bravery during emergencies. As the commotion in the hospital corridor began to settle, the atmosphere in room 3 shifted to one of warmth and camaraderie. Jamie lay in his bed, Max beside him, while Clara and Emily shared a moment of relief as they watched the medical staff tend to Lily, the young woman who had collapsed. With Max lying protectively at Jamie's feet, the boy felt a sense of calm wash over him. The golden retriever's presence was a constant reminder that he was not alone in this moment. Emily smiled at Jamie, who was now watching intently as Lily sat up with the help of the nurses. "Are you feeling better?" Emily asked Lily gently. "Much better, thank you," Lily replied, her voice still a bit shaky but filled with gratitude. "I'm sorry for causing such a fuss." "It's okay," Clara said, stepping closer. "We're just glad you're all right. Max seems to have taken a liking to you." Lily chuckled softly as she reached down to scratch behind Max's ears. "He's such a sweetheart. I've always loved dogs. They have a way of making everything feel better." Emily nodded, her heart swelling with pride for Max. He really does have a special gift for comforting people. As Lily continued to pet Max, Jamie watched with wide eyes, feeling inspired by the connection forming between them. "Max is my best friend," he said proudly. "He helps me feel better when I'm scared." Lily smiled warmly at Jamie. "I can see that. He's like a little guardian angel." The nurses finished their assessment of Lily and assured her that she would be monitored for a little while longer before they would allow her to leave. The atmosphere in the room lightened as laughter began to fill the space again, Jamie sharing stories about Max's antics and how he once chased after a butterfly into Mrs. Henderson's flower garden. "Did you know he once tried to dig up my favorite toy?" Jamie exclaimed, his eyes sparkling with excitement. "I thought he was going to bury it forever." Lily laughed, her earlier anxiety fading away as she listened to Jamie's tales. "Dogs can be so silly. Mine used to steal my socks when I wasn't looking." As they exchanged stories about their pets, Jamie animatedly describing Max's playful personality and Lily reminiscing about her childhood dog named Daisy, a bond began to form between them all. The shared experiences of love for their furry companions created an invisible thread that connected their hearts. Meanwhile, Clara took a moment to step outside into the hallway where she found Drive Patel reviewing Lily's chart with one of the nurses. "Is she going to be okay?" Clara asked, her concern evident in her voice. Dr. Patel looked up and nodded reassuringly. "Yes, she appears stable now. We'll keep her for observation just to be safe, but I don't anticipate any long-term issues." Clara sighed with relief, grateful for the doctor's words. "Thank you so much for everything you're doing. It's our job, Drive," Patel replied with a smile before glancing back toward room 3. "It seems like your son has made quite an impression on Lily, and vice versa." Clara smiled softly at that thought. It warmed her heart to see Jamie connecting with someone new despite the circumstances. Back in room 3, Jamie continued sharing stories about Max while Lily listened intently, laughing along with him as they bonded over their love for dogs. And then there was this time when Max got so excited about going for a walk that he jumped right into a puddle. Jamie exclaimed, his laughter infectious. Lily giggled at the image painted by Jamie's words. "That sounds just like my Daisy. She loved jumping in puddles too." As they shared more stories, Emily felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude wash over her, grateful for Max's ability to bring people together even in challenging times. After some time had passed and Lily seemed more comfortable, Emily decided it was time for them all to take a breather from the hospital environment. "Why don't we take Max for a little walk around the hospital grounds?" she suggested brightly. "Fresh air will do us all good." Jamie's eyes lit up at the idea. "Can we? That would be awesome." Lily smiled at the thought as well. "I'd love that. It'll be nice to get outside after everything that happened." With everyone in agreement, Emily led the way as they carefully maneuvered through the hospital corridors toward an exit that opened up into a small garden area behind the building. Once outside, they were greeted by crisp autumn air and sunshine filtering through vibrant leaves still clinging to their branches. The garden was peaceful, a small oasis filled with colorful flowers and benches where families could sit together. Max immediately perked up at being outdoors. He bounded ahead excitedly, sniffing at everything around him while wagging his tail joyfully. "Look at him go." Jamie laughed as he watched Max explore his surroundings. Lily laughed too, feeling lighter than she had in hours. He really is full of energy. As they strolled through the garden together, Max leading the way, the conversations flowed easily among them like a gentle stream winding through lush greenery. Jamie shared more stories about his adventures with Max while Clara and Emily exchanged knowing smiles. It was heartwarming to see how quickly connections could form even amidst uncertainty. After some time spent enjoying each other's company and soaking in the sunshine, Clara turned toward Jamie and said gently, "How are you feeling now?" "I feel good," Jamie replied enthusiastically. "Having Max here makes everything better." Lily nodded in agreement. He really has a special talent for making people smile. Just then, Max returned from his exploration and plopped down beside Jamie with an exaggerated sigh as if saying he had completed his mission of joy-bringing successfully. Emily knelt beside them both and scratched behind Max's ears affectionately. "You are indeed our little superhero," she said playfully. In that moment, surrounded by laughter and love, the worries of earlier faded into the background like distant echoes lost among autumn leaves swirling around them. As they continued their walk through the garden, Max leading them on new adventures, everyone felt an unspoken bond growing stronger among them. A connection forged not just through shared experiences but also through love for their furry companions who had brought them together during this unexpected journey. And as they walked hand in paw under blue skies filled with hope, the world outside seemed brighter than ever before, a reminder that even in difficult times, the power of friendship could light up even the darkest days. The sun began to dip below the horizon, casting a warm golden light over Willowbrook as the group made their way back inside the hospital. The earlier tension had transformed into a sense of camaraderie, and laughter echoed in the corridors as Jamie, Clara, Emily, and Lily returned to room 3. Once inside, they settled back into their comfortable rhythm. Max lay at Jamie's feet, his head resting on the boy's lap, while Clara and Emily exchanged smiles filled with gratitude for the unexpected connections forged during the day's events. "Thank you for being so brave today, Jamie," Clara said softly, brushing a strand of hair from her son's forehead. "You handled everything so well." Jamie beamed with pride. "I just wanted to make sure Max was okay, and Lily too." Lily smiled at him. "You were amazing. I don't think I would have felt half as good without Max by my side." Emily nodded in agreement. "Max has a way of bringing comfort to everyone around him. He truly is a special dog." As they chatted, Patel returned to the room with a clipboard in hand. "All right, everyone," he said cheerfully. "I have some good news. Lily, your tests came back normal. We'll keep you for a little while longer just to monitor you, but you're free to go home soon." Lily's face lit up with relief. "Thank you so much," she exclaimed, her voice filled with gratitude. "And Jamie, Patel continued, turning his attention to the young boy. "We've discussed your condition and will start you on a treatment plan that will help manage your SVT effectively. You'll be able to lead a normal life with some adjustments." Jamie nodded enthusiastically, feeling hopeful about what lay ahead. "Does that mean I can still play football?" he asked eagerly. "Absolutely, Doctor," Patel replied with a smile. "Just remember to listen to your body and take breaks when needed." As Dr. Patel left the room, Clara wrapped her arms around Jamie in a tight hug. "I'm so proud of you," she whispered. Just then, Max lifted his head and let out a soft bark as if joining in on the celebration. Jamie laughed and hugged him tightly too. "You're my hero, Max." The atmosphere in the room was electric with joy and relief as they celebrated their victories, both big and small, together. As they settled back into conversation about their favorite activities and upcoming plans for the weekend, Emily noticed that several nurses had gathered outside their room, exchanging glances filled with curiosity. "Is everything all right?" she called out gently. One of the nurses stepped forward with a smile. "We just wanted to check on you all. We heard about what happened earlier with Lily and how Max helped calm her down." Another nurse chimed in. "It's incredible how he seems to know when someone needs him most." Clara smiled warmly at Max, who was now basking in all the attention he was receiving from everyone around him. "He really does have a gift," she said proudly. As word spread through the hospital about Max's heroic actions that day, how he had rushed to help Lily when she collapsed, more staff members began to come by room 3 to meet the golden retriever who had become an unlikely hero. Before long, the small room was filled with laughter and stories shared among friends, nurses recounting tales of their own pets while Jamie animatedly described more of Max's adventures. In that moment of connection and community spirit, amidst laughter echoing through hospital walls, Emily couldn't help but feel grateful for how far they had all come together during this unexpected journey. Later that evening, after Lily had been cleared for discharge and Jamie was settled into his new treatment plan, Clara turned to Emily with a thoughtful expression. "You know," she said slowly, "I think we should do something special for everyone who helped us today." Emily nodded in agreement. "That's a wonderful idea. Maybe we could organize a small gathering at the park this weekend. A way to thank everyone for their support, and celebrate our new friendships." Jamie's eyes lit up at the thought of a gathering filled with friends and fun activities. "Can we bring Max? He deserves a party too." "Of course." Clara laughed at her son's enthusiasm. As they planned their gathering, a picnic complete with homemade treats and games, the excitement in the room grew palpable. The following days flew by as they prepared for Saturday's event. Clara baked cookies while Emily organized supplies for games and decorations at Willowbrook Park, a beloved spot where families often gathered for picnics under sprawling oak trees. On the day of the picnic, bright sunshine bathed the park in warmth as families arrived, bringing blankets, baskets filled with delicious food, and plenty of laughter that echoed through the air. Max bounded around joyfully as children played fetch with him. He relished every moment spent surrounded by friends old and new, his spirit infectious as he brought smiles to everyone he encountered. Lily arrived with her family, her face glowing with happiness after her recovery. She immediately sought out Jamie and Max upon arrival. "Hey there," she called out excitedly as she spotted them playing by one of the trees. "Lily," Jamie shouted back happily before running over to greet her. They quickly fell back into their easy banter about dogs and adventures, a friendship forged through shared experiences that felt like it had always been there. As Clara mingled among friends, thankful for their support during such challenging times, Emily took a moment to step back and soak it all in, the laughter ringing through the air like music, a reminder that even amidst struggles, community could unite hearts together beautifully. Later in the afternoon as they gathered around picnic blankets filled with treats, a sense of gratitude washed over them all. It was clear how much love had blossomed from what began as an emergency situation turned into something extraordinary, a celebration not just of healing but also friendship that would last long beyond this day. As they raised their glasses of lemonade in cheers to new friendships formed amidst adversity, they knew deep down that this was just the beginning of many more adventures yet to come. All thanks to one golden retriever named Max who had brought them together through love, and reminded them all how powerful connection could be when hearts united under shared experiences filled with joy. And so under blue skies filled with hope, the village of Willowbrook thrived together, a community united by love, and forever grateful for every moment shared along their journey toward healing, and friendship that would last forevermore. This final chapter wraps up the story on a heartwarming note while highlighting themes of community support, friendship, and gratitude.